Hi everyone, welcome back to Tea of Austerity. And I know it's been for a while, but life happens and there's some changes to my lifestyle which is stopping me from making these videos. But hopefully now I'll be back at it and make more videos for everyone to see and also to continue the process, because again, this is an evolving system and I wanted to see where it goes. So previously we talked about the 6 positive traits, but the story is incomplete because we also need to consider deeper into each of the aspects. And what do I mean? Think about in terms of physics. We're not only interested in the position of an object, but we also wanted to know the speed that it's moving and also the acceleration, how fast it is gaining that speed. And when we think of this in terms of our assessment, when we think about in terms of the attributes itself, it's like the position, where we are, and our current state. And the activities that we will do for each of the attribute is considered the speed. So the speed that we can gain or lose different attributes. But the speed itself is also governed by something deeper, more innate. And I call them the 6 permanent negative attributes. It's very interesting. I'll tell you why I decided to call it the negative and also why it is permanent. But think about this. Our life on this earth is essentially short and everything will go through similar to gravity. You have something start and gets better until you reach the highest point and then you will start to go down. So that's almost like gravity, right? Gravity will have an acceleration towards the earth. So even though you may shoot something up towards the air, the speed will slowly to reduce until it goes negative and it will drop. It will drop down and faster. I can give you an example in terms of something we all experience. Say physical strength. When you start, you're probably weak, and then you will do exercise, you will eat, you will find maybe a different coach, you will join different clubs, and you sleep, and you do everything, try to improve your physical prowess. So your strength will start to climb. You can see how much you lift or how fast you can run. But then, as you age, you realize you take harder and harder for you to acquire or to gain on the strength front. And eventually, you spend more and more time maintaining your strength. And as you age further and further, the strength will decrease. So what do we call that? That's a natural degradation of our physical body. And for that, we can say that, okay, so that is a second order derivative of the strength attribute. And in our case, you'll be negative because it negatively impacts your power. If you think about this in this way, then really hardly anything is a gain. Almost everything depreciates. Your money, your wealth, your intellect, even your memory. You reach a peak and you start to go down. So we can say that all these things accumulating is a negative factor. Let me make it more concrete. Say you want to learn a new language. And we all know kids learn language really fast, but as you become adult, you start to learn them slower. And then when you become senior, probably much slower. Not just for language, but maybe for any other, let's say, intellectually challenging discipline. And why is that? I mean, there are many theories. I don't have a precise answer, but I just know that's a trend. Of course, you can always have different study methods that will alleviate some of the problem. But the baseline is the same. As you age, your knowledge structure, your neuron crystallize, it's harder for you to build more connections, and the speed which you learn new things will start to reduce. And then maybe in the future, you will start to forget things more often. So that's natural. So we can see the same thing with intelligence or even knowledge. You will go up fast, and then you stop being able to accumulate anymore and start to lose more and more. some other things you can find, it's not secret, or I mean, maybe people can make a particular exceptions, but for most people, as they age, they start to lose charisma, or at least they don't look as beautiful as before, natural. That thing will reduce, and well, people compensate with different other things. But you have to know that just by itself, the attribute by itself is also depreciating. So that's why I said these depreciating factors have an innate component that's progressively getting worse. And it gets worse every year, and it gets worse every decade. And there's almost no way to reverse that. Let me put it in concrete terms. Say you have damaged your body, and most of those damage are reversible, but some damage are irreversible. Say accumulation of toxins, and we know accumulation of heavy toxin or heavy metal toxin and other forever chemicals will negatively impact your health, and in that particular chemical case will inhibit your hormone production and make you more susceptible to many different illnesses. And as far as I know, the accumulation can slow it down, but for the most part, they're irreversible. And so many other things are like that as well. But it's okay, that's just life. Most of the things are irreversible, but that's why I want to make the distinction that you have the attributes that we want to measure, but we also have the second order things that governs how fast we can gain, or eventually we'll be losing these traits, and what I call them the 6 permanent negative traits. Because again, you will only accumulate more debt or more damage to your system, and this damage, just because I want to make a distinction, are irreversible. And why do I want to make that decision? Because if I make them reversible, then almost the system becomes too versatile and too flexible, and it's not easy for us to, because the point of the system is to act as a guidance on what you should do for your life. Like how do you want to structure life? How do you want to have long-term planning, and to have a mindset or strategy to ensure that this thing can be carried through, that you can accomplish this. If everything is changing, everything can be in a flux, then it's hard for you to find priorities. So I make this trade-off. This is explicit restriction that the 6 negative traits can only go up and cannot go down. And it's important because, again, I want you to understand that a lot of things that we do have weights to them, and sometimes they are irreversible. Okay, well, you think about this in terms of physical things, and you may say that, oh look, I can erase it. Maybe future technology will find a new, let's say my teeth is broken, it will grow a new teeth. Fine. But many other things are not like that. Psychologically speaking, there are things that you can do that may give you irreversible psychological damage. Say something like commit various type of crime, be dishonest, be disloyal. And it's not hard to see that those things will have on your psyche. And you can think about it as you'll be forever carrying guilt. But this is very, very extreme. Carrying a guilt for something will negatively impact many of your options in the future. You may not know it now, but again, that's a part about wisdom, is if you know many people regret doing something and that regret sticks with them for their entire life, then you probably don't want that. Even though the thing that they regret doing is most likely very tempting at the moment. But if you really start to strategically plan out the things that will give you permanent damage, then probably it's best for you to not engage them in the first place, no matter how enticing and how juicy they are. Again, this is very abstract, but I wanted to put it out there, and when we revisit them in the future, you become more and more clear. And as we find more and more of these elements, we'll put them all into a Google spreadsheet, and anyone can download and to fine tune, to put some of their own characteristics into the thing and just run it through and see what happens. Okay. what else should I talk about? So we talk about these things are irreversible, but we didn't talk about for each individual points, what are things that gain the positive trait, because that's ultimately what you wanted to know. You want to maximize your 6 positive traits while minimize the accumulation of your 6 negative traits. But right here, this lists what those 6 points are. And you can imagine they're almost like the mirror to the 6 positive traits. Very similar, but not quite the same. So the first point is enfeeblement. And for this, I say it is the natural decay and degeneration of all aspects of life. So that includes your health, your wealth, inflation, your relationship, and even your wisdom, your pride, almost everything. This, I don't know how can I make more obvious, but I think you have to come to understanding that with time, your ambition even will start to get eroded away. And that's fine. But you just have to know that's the case. Your drive, your ambition, your goal will change. And most likely you will start to go down like this. But it's okay. Let's manage that. Second one, resistance. And what I mean by resistance is many life events will come to you and they will chisel away your edges. You become blunt, you're no longer sharp. And with that, you become more dull. And I think same for every one of us. When we encounter different problems in the workplace, we start to learn how to talk the talk. Is that good to do that? Probably good for the situation, but is that good for your own development? Probably not. I mean, I'm not saying that you become a sycophant or you just talk in purely corporate jargon. But the way you do a lot of things, for example, like do things in a way that make you blameless, or do things that you want to keep a record of things in case someone come back to you with different accusation. But the fact of doing these kind of things in the work or in life in general will chisel away a lot of your optimism and your way of wanting to do things. So eventually you get boxed in. And the consequence of getting boxed in is you become more resistant to change. Because again, you're being molded into a tool, and that tool start to degrade, start to become stubborn, and you will too. You become stubborn in the way you want to do things, just like the way you see your grandparents, just like the way you see your parents. It's no surprise. And you know it, I know it, we will all become that way in the next 50 years. So plan for it. Know that you become more inflexible. Know that you will be, know that you just won't change. And sometimes especially something more pernicious or even more insidious as debating in political terms or doing something majorly impacting your life. Because people sometimes don't want to change. And they don't not just not want to change, they actually want to see their demise and they want to see it happen. And they wanted to, essentially they want to drown in their own sorrow and be happy about it. Eventually, it's like playing a character. They want to finish the act. But can you blame them? No. Do you understand why they wanted to be that or want to play a character to its bitter end? Yes, I think we all at some level wanted to do that. But it's okay. Just take that into consideration. Number 3, avarice, or more simply, greed. We want this, we want that. And as we see the world more and more, we want more and more. But we all know, if you look at things, opportunities in a counterfactual way, that is, you can never have the things you never undertook, in a sense that you can drink a Coke, but you have infinitely many other drinks that you choose to not consume because you drank the Coke, because you cannot drink the same thing at once. So as you age, while you may have many opportunities, your missed opportunities dwarfs the amount of things you can possibly have. So you may buy the most lavish things on earth, but deeply you always know that there's so many things that you did not try. But that's just reality. You can only pick one thing at a time. But this doesn't stop anyone from greed, from demanding, or from desiring more wealth, more youth, more decadent way of living life, more sensation, more dopamine hit, you name it. And or you want it to be more like a saint. You want to build a legacy. You want to be forever remembered. Now, can you become a hermit and start relinquishing all these kind of greed? Yes, it's possible. But again, as a point itself, I think for most people, and I think for the purpose, just to be honest with everyone, let's just say that it increases. Number 4, hubris. That's another thing very similar to greed. And I think the more successful you are, or actually even if you're not successful, the more you see things, the more you understand how it works. The Bible is correct. There's nothing new under the sun. So if you sing everything already, why not have this hubris about it? You're certain that you know things to be correct. And you know that you won't change in a sense. And you can look down at everyone. I'm not saying you would, but hubris manifests in many areas of life. What else can I say? You want people to respect you. I think that's another common thing. So as people grow older and older, they don't just compare themselves against themselves. They look around and see how they stack up against their friends or the people they don't even know about. They demand respect, maybe partially because they have nothing else to demand. But let's not go too sad about this. But just so you know that similar to greed, your hubris will most likely grow, and that will have detrimental effect on your well-being. Number 5, madness. This is pretty funny, I think. I mean, how should I say this? As you age, with time, you'll grow tired of many things. You've tried them, you've seen them, you know them. So what's new? Maybe throw a little bit of chaos into things and watch it burn. Why not? Could be very fun. Maybe people will be sane, and those are the fortunate people. But I think some people, or everyone, have a little bit of destructive tendencies. They wanted to be mad. And how can you blame them? I don't think so. Because when you live a monotonous life over and over and over again, and the same 9-to-5 job over and over again, is madness a response to that? Or it's a cure to that? So maybe it's not a bad thing after all, but you have to keep it in check. Because if you fly too close to the sun, bye-bye. Number 6, cruelty. I think this is probably the hardest thing to understand. But I think innately I'm starting to understand that when you start to see things, when you start to experience more things, the incremental pleasure, the incremental gains start to diminish. And I think at one point you just stop being sensitive to most people. You become cruel to yourself, you become cruel to the world, because while other people see the process, you start to see the end. And when you see the end, you will demand efficiency. And when you demand efficiency, you will stop giving a damn about people's feeling, including yourselves. So become cruel to others, and more importantly, cruel to yourself. Now, but is that a bad thing? Again, depends on what you want to do. But in general, probably not. And the way we can see this very simply, if you look at all the presidential debates, all the leader that want to play this hardline law and order type of persona, eventually they'll be superseded by a more charismatic guy who cares about the common people, who cares about the poor. And you know what? I think society wants the second type of people more than the first type. But again, depending on different situation, maybe in a time of dire, maybe in a time of grim and dark, you want to be more cruel. But at least right now, the society is not like that. So, just to summarize, we talk about the 6 negative traits, and we said that we want to make them permanently negative, and that they impact the speed which we can accumulate the 6 positive traits. And the negative traits are permanent because they're everything that degrades with time. So it doesn't get better, but there are many things you can do to mitigate its growth, to hamper, to clamp down, so you don't become a full-blown joker, maybe. Hopefully you don't become like that. So now we have the 6 positive traits, and we have the 6 second derivative negative traits. And in the later section, we'll go through each individual positive traits and say what we can do about those, and each individual 6 negative permanent traits to say what we can do about those as well, and have each listed different action plans and mitigating plans for each of them. Okay, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.